The year is 1947, and a young Bedouin shepherd throws a stone into a cave. He is not searching for God. He is not searching for history. He is looking for a lost goat in the cliffs above the Dead Sea. The stone strikes something inside the darkness, and the sound that comes back is not the sound of rock. It is the sound of clay shattering, ancient, fragile, irreplaceable. Inside that cave, sealed for 2,000 years, were scrolls. Scrolls containing the oldest known manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible. Word for word, nearly identical, a shepherd's stone shattering 2,000 years of doubt. But here is what no one tells you about that moment. The scrolls were not hidden to be found. They were hidden to survive. Because the truth inside them was worth preserving even at the cost of everything. And they were right, because what is written in those pages has been crawling out of the ground ever since.
We need to document this immediately.
Confirmed not by faith alone, but by stone, by clay, by the patient testimony of the earth itself. Welcome. If you have found this channel, you did not arrive here by accident. This is the place where the silence of ancient ruins learns to speak again. Where a single potsherd overturns a century of academic certainty. Where the dust of fallen empires rises to whisper the name of a God the world keeps trying to bury.
For such an ancient site.
Today we are not going to ask you to believe anything. We are going to ask the earth to testify.
That's it.
And then, together, we are going to listen to what the earth remembers. For generations, the Bible has stood in the crosshairs of the sharpest minds in human history. Philosophers, scientists, archaeologists, linguists, each one arriving with tools designed to dismantle it. And each time something extraordinary happens, the tools turn, the evidence shifts, and the ground speaks.
Incredible.
What rises from beneath the surface is not a contradiction of Scripture.
I think this is it. The markings, they're clear.
It is a confirmation, quiet, precise, and devastating to doubt.
It's impossible. Look at this.
What you are about to encounter is not theology dressed as science.
This section before dark. Be careful with that.
It is science arriving, reluctantly, at the door of theology and finding that the door was never locked. 6 chapters, 6 categories of evidence, 6 moments where the world stopped arguing and started listening. And if this journey stirs something in the deep places of your soul, do not be surprised. They said the Bible was poetry dressed as history and the stories beautiful but not real.
Quickly.
Engineers do not take blueprints from ancient myth, or so they believed.
Yes, but consider the variables.
And yet here we are standing before 2 structures that should not exist. One described in Genesis, one carved beneath Jerusalem, both confirmed by the most unforgiving discipline on earth, physics. Let us begin with the structure the world laughed at the longest. The Ark of Noah, for 2 centuries the favorite weapon of every skeptic who ever lived.
Utter nonsense.
The story too large, too literal, too logistically impossible to survive serious scrutiny. A vessel the size of a modern aircraft carrier, built by one family in the Bronze Age. Without cranes, without steel, without computer modeling, the mockery was loud, confident, and almost universal. But in 2014, something quietly devastating happened inside a university lecture hall in Leicester, England. A group of physics students decided to run the numbers not as believers, not as apologists, but as engineers. They fed the exact dimensions recorded in Genesis into their calculations.
Did you account for the displacement factor?
Length, width, depth, the precise ratio of hull to beam that ancient shipbuilders never articulated but Genesis somehow encoded. The results stopped them cold. Not only would the ark float, it would float extraordinarily well.
It's impossible.
The dimensions described in Genesis produce a hull with near-perfect hydrodynamic stability. A vessel capable of carrying enormous weight without capsizing, even in severe ocean swells. Modern naval architects noted the proportions align with design principles used in large cargo vessels today. Principles that took human engineering millennia to rediscover, but here is the detail that shatters the skeptic's confidence. The Genesis account was not written by a shipbuilder or a maritime culture with centuries of naval tradition. It was written in a landlocked ancient context by someone who, according to the text, received these measurements. And yet the math works, the physics holds, the structure floats, and it floats extraordinarily well. This is not a coincidence that fits comfortably inside the category of lucky gases. This is precision that demands an explanation. If Genesis encodes real engineering, the question changes entirely. The question becomes, where did the knowledge come from? But beneath Jerusalem, another impossible structure already waits, one that did not float on water but cut through a mountain to bring water to a besieged city. Hezekiah's Tunnel. The year is 701 BC and the most feared army in the ancient world is marching. The Assyrian army, the most feared military machine of the ancient world, is marching toward Jerusalem.
Time has come.
King Hezekiah faces an impossible choice and makes an impossible decision.
The water lies just
He orders his engineers to carve a tunnel through 533 meters of solid limestone bedrock.
Keep going.
Two teams begin digging simultaneously, one from each end of the mountain, working in darkness. Guided only by sound, with iron tools and human hands, they meet in the middle. Not approximately, not close enough. They meet with the precision modern engineers still describe as extraordinary. The deviation across 533 meters of hand-carved rock is less than any modern surveying instrument could explain. An inscription found inside the tunnel describes the moment the two teams heard each other's pickaxes through the rock. It is one of the oldest first-person engineering accounts in human history.
Through Hezekiah's tunnel.
And it is carved into the wall of the tunnel that should not have been possible. But Hezekiah's tunnel does not end at the mountain, it ends at a pool. A pool described in the Gospel of John where Jesus healed a man born blind.
Another unsubstantiated
For centuries,
pool.
critics argued the pool was symbolic, not a real
Centurions dismissed
location
it.
carved
It does
into
not
real
exist.
earth. Then in 2004, a construction crew repairing a sewage pipe in the city of David struck ancient stone steps. Archaeologists were called in air. Buried beneath centuries of debris was the pool of Siloam.
It's everything
Exactly
we
where
hoped for.
John said it would be,
complete
the
structure.
steps, the size,
This
the
confirms
stonework,
the first
all
century
consistent
period.
with the first century.
The pool of Siloam.
3 discoveries, 1
Confirmed.
chapter, 1 conclusion. The
discovery
Bible
that
did not
rewrites
describe
history.
structures archaeology found impossible. The Bible
golden light
described
of the desert
structures that
horizon.
physics,
The flickering
engineering,
torch inside
and
the dark
excavation
tunnel.
have
The unearthed
confirmed to be
steps of the
real. And in some cases, more sophisticated than the ancient world had any right to produce. When the ground speaks this clearly, the only honest response is to listen.
All right, pack it up for the day.
And we have only just begun to dig because the ground
Careful with
still
that, it's
has
fragile.
much more to say.
The truth, you see, is not
There
a
is a
matter
particular
of consensus.
kind of arrogance
It
that
is a
grows
matter
in the
of
absence of
irrefutable
evidence.
fact, and I possess it.
For generations, biblical critics had one favorite weapon: the argument from silence.
Abraham, Moses,
If we cannot find the
David,
name in
we are
external
supposed to
records,
believe these
they
names
argued,
without
then the
question.
person
The
did not
evidence
exist.
simply isn't there.
If the person did not exist, the story collapses, and if the story collapses, scripture becomes mythology.
And so we find that
It
this
was a clean argument,
forged
a
over
confident
centuries,
argument, and for a
stands
long time,
today
it
as
worked.
irrefutable.
The sun's getting low.
And the earth has spent the last century systematically
cleared this
dismantling
section.
it one name at a
Be
time.
careful with that corner.
We begin in 1961, on the sun-bleached coast of Caesarea Maritima.
Keep it steady.
Archaeologists
Watch that stone.
clearing rubble from an ancient
Got it.
Roman theater
Looks
were
like a piece
doing
of the
what
cornice.
archaeologists
Good, move it to
often
the sorting
do:
pile.
moving stone by unremarkable stone, finding nothing dramatic until one worker lifted a block repurposed as a step. On its face, worn but legible, were 2 lines of Latin inscription. Pontius Pilate, Prefect Oee. Pontius Pilate, Prefect of Judea, carved into stone by his own hand. For decades, mainstream scholarship had argued that Pilate's existence could not be independently verified. The Gospels named him. Tacitus mentioned him. Josephus recorded him. But without direct epigraphic confirmation, the door remained open. One
Look closer, the
repurposed building
inscription is
block
clear.
slammed it shut, but the Pilate
matches
Stone
the historical
reveals something
records.
far more
It's him.
significant than
This
a name.
changes everything.
It confirms a precise political title: prefect, not procurator, exactly the title used in the earliest gospel manuscripts. A distinction that matters deeply because the 2 titles carry
Let it be
different
done.
levels of authority in Roman administrative structure. The gospel writers did not guess; they recorded the correct title for the correct period without witness precision. The stone did not merely prove a man existed, it confirmed the accuracy of the documents that named him. But Pilate is not alone, and his emergence from obscurity traveled back 5 centuries to ancient Babylon.
5 centuries. And in the
For
book
generations,
of Daniel,
one name in the
Belshazzar's
book
fate
of
is
Daniel
sealed.
was the skeptic's
A clear
favorite
line drawn.
target.
A final judgment passed.
The time
Belshazzar,
is
the
upon
book
us.
of Daniel, names
The
him as the
empire
last
awaits
king
its
who
destiny.
feasted while his empire
Let
crumbled.
the feast begin.
The
But
historical
ancient
record is
Babylonian
unequivocal.
records
The
listed
omission
no
of
such
Belshazzar's
king.
name
The
from
final
this
ruler,
comprehensive list of
historians
Babylonian kings
insisted,
speaks
was
volumes.
Nabonidus. Belshazzar,
Nabonidus
they concluded,
Chronicles.
was a theological invention. Then came the
I can't believe it's
Nabonidus
actually
Chronicles, and everything changed. Cuneiform tablets excavated from the ruins of Babylon revealed something extraordinary. Nabonidus had appointed his eldest
The
son as
kingdom is
co-regent, entrusting him
I
with the
accept
throne
this
of
heavy burden,
Babylon.
my king.
The name
That son's
is
name was Belshazzar. He was not a
found
fiction.
in the heart
He was
of
a
Babylon's
co-regent,
own records.
By the
which
authority
explains
vested in me,
precisely
I
why in the
bestow
book
upon
of
you the
Daniel,
position of
he
High
offers
Chancellor.
the prophet the
May you
position
serve
of
the kingdom
third
with
highest
wisdom
ruler.
and loyalty.
Because Belshazzar himself was second, a detail so precise, no ancient forger could have invented it.
I've
The
always been
skeptics
certain
called it an error.
that this has
The tablets called it accurate.
no, it can't be.
And the pattern continues in the ruins of Corinth, a stone bearing a name from Paul's own letter.
The name
Erastus.
a
Paul
passing
writes in
reference here
Romans 16,
confirming the
Erastus,
location
the
of
city
early-
treasurer,
yes, found not
sends
only
his
in stone
greetings.
but in scripture.
A passing reference, easy to dismiss, but the Corinthian inscription reads, Erastus laid this pavement at his own expense. Same name, same city, same period, same civic role. A man Paul mentioned, confirmed by a
Keep
public
sifting
street
carefully around that
inscription.
corner.
And then there is perhaps the most electrifying discovery of the
We're
modern
almost through
era.
this layer. I feel something here.
The evidence simply isn't there.
For
It is
years,
clearly a
critics
mythological
insisted David was a
construct.
mythological figure,
right
a
here.
legendary
It's the
king
only
invented
logical
to serve a
conclusion.
narrative. No
No,
external evidence,
it
they
can't be.
argued, confirmed
This
its
is
existence
impossible.
then in
It's
1993
real.
at Tel Dan.
my
Archaeologists
God, it's real.
found a basalt stele, a victory monument erected by an Aramean king carved in ancient Aramaic with the words, House of David. Beit David, the dynasty of a man critics called a myth, confirmed by a monument his enemies built. Because
The sun
even those
sets
who
on a
fought
reign
against
that will be
David's
remembered by
descendants
all,
could not deny that his house
friends
had
and
stood.
foes alike.
The critics had argued from silence. The stone answered from certainty.
Keep brushing
Name
carefully,
after
there's
name,
something here.
stone
We're
after
getting
stone.
closer to the lower
The
level.
people
Check this
dismissed as
section, it's
literary
different.
devices keep walking out of the ground. There is a word for this pattern, it is not coincidence. It is testimony, and if these names are real, if Pilate governed, if Belshazzar reigned, if David's house stood, then the stories woven around these names deserve a far more serious hearing.
I find him
Because you
guilty of
cannot
the
have the
charges
man
against
without the
him.
moment, you cannot
Sentence
confirm
is
the
death
governor
by
without
crucifixion.
confronting the
Let
trial.
it be done.
Another
The
great
names
day.
have been confirmed. The stories are waiting,
We have for tomorrow.
and the earth is still speaking. If one of these names landed differently for you today, leave a word in the comments below. Not an argument, not a defense, just a word for someone still searching. Your
The
voice in
time
this
has
space
come.
may be the thing that keeps another person from walking away.
Let our voices be heard.
If something shifted in the way you hold the stories you grew up with,
Hold.
there is a particular silence that falls over an excavation site the
Everyone
moment a
just stop.
shovel strikes something unexpected.
What is it?
Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of a world forced to
Impossible.
revise what it thought it knew.
Look at this.
Careful
That
here.
silence
The
has
layer is
fallen
very
many
thin.
times, and it has
See what you
fallen
make of it.
loudest over the cities the
Looks like
Bible
pottery,
described
but
with
it's different than
precision.
the last batch.
We begin where the walls fell at the oldest contested site in biblical archaeology, Jericho. The oldest continuously inhabited city on earth and the most contested site in biblical archaeology.
A testament to time.
For
The evidence is
decades,
conclusive.
the academic
The walls did
position
not
was clear
fall
the
as
biblical
described.
account of Jericho's fall
This
was
account is
liturgical
entirely
drama,
liturgical.
not history. The walls, the march, the trumpets, the sudden collapse, theology wrapped in narrative, not physical evidence.
Keep it slow
Then the
and steady
ground
here.
disagreed. Kathleen Kenyon, herself a skeptic, excavated Jericho
careful
in the
of the support
1950s and found something unexpected. The walls of Jericho had not fallen inward as they would have under conventional siege warfare. They had collapsed outward, the debris field spread away from the city, as if pushed from within. And inside those collapsed walls, excavators found storage jars still full of grain. In ancient siege warfare, food was the first casualty, burned, consumed, or carried away by victors. But Jericho's grain remained untouched, abundant, exactly as it would be if the city fell suddenly. A sudden destruction. Walls fallen outward. Storerooms still full, exactly as the book of Joshua describes. It is the kind of
can't be.
evidence that leaves even skeptics staring into the dust,
This fits. Times all of it.
wondering how myth could so perfectly match reality. But Jericho is only the beginning. Travel east to the region the Bible calls the cities of the plain. For most of
The
modern
evidence simply
history,
doesn't support
Sodom
the existence
existed
of a
in
physical
one
city
category,
here.
moral
It remains
allegory.
firmly in the realm of allegory.
A city destroyed not by armies but by divine judgment, consumed by fire from the sky. Erased so completely that its very location became a matter of theological debate. Then in 2018, archaeologist Stephen Collins published findings from over a decade of excavation at Tal el-Hammam. What he found
scale is
defied every
incredible.
conventional
Larger than we've
explanation. A
ever
massive
imagined.
Bronze Age city, catastrophically destroyed around 1650 BC, not burned in the slow methodical way of ancient conquest, obliterated, instantly and completely.
The temperatures that created
The
this
destruction
vitrification
layer
exceed
contained
normal
melted
ancient
pottery,
fire.
vitrified
This fused
mud
boundary
brick, and
defies
trinitite-like
conventional
material.
explanation.
The same substance produced when extreme heat transforms sand into glass.
Unprecedented. These
Temperatures
they're far
consistent with
beyond
those
anything we've ever
analyses
observed.
exceed anything a conventional
Impossible,
ancient fire
defying all
could produce.
conventional explanation. After years of
The scientific
painstaking
team's
analysis,
conclusion
our final
was striking.
conclusion is
The
this.
most plausible explanation is a
We are no
cosmic
longer alone.
aeroburst event. An asteroid or comet exploding above the city, releasing energy equivalent to a nuclear detonation. The Bible called it fire from heaven. Modern astrophysics calls it a cosmic airburst. The mechanism differs in language, the event is the same. And here, the line between miracle and mechanism blurs. But we move north now, back to Jerusalem, back to the hill that critics dismissed as too small. The city of David. For decades, scholars insisted it was nothing more than a modest highland village.
It's no wonder.
You see?
Not the
This tiny
capital of
dot
a
was
kingdom
Jerusalem
capable of
in
the
the 10th
achievements the
century BC.
Bible attributes to
Compare
it.
that to the empires around it.
Then excavations beneath the modern city began to tell a different story.
My God, this is it.
Eilat Mazar,
It's over a
digging
meter.
at the site, uncovered a structure of massive proportions.
scale.
The composition confirms
Walls over a meter
This
thick
fragment
pottery and
dates to the
artifacts
10th
dating
century
unmistakably
BC,
to the
matching
10th
the
century
pottery of David's
BC.
reign.
The scale is unlike
The precise
anything we
era
found
of
here.
David's reign, its scale inconsistent
This
with a
wasn't a
village, consistent
This
with
was
a
a city.
palace.
This unprecedented
Below it laid the
discovery
Canaanite
reveals a
stepped
level of
stone
sophistication
structure, a
previously thought
fortification system
impossible
of
for
extraordinary
Canaanite Jerusalem.
complexity,
The
engineered with a
tolerances,
sophistication that
load-bearing,
Bronze Age
this level
Jerusalem
of
was not
engineering
supposed to
sophistication in the
possess.
Bronze Age, it's truly incredible.
The
Terraced
massive
walls,
scale of these
interlocking
terraced
stones, a
these
defensive
terraced
system
walls
designed to
confirms
protect a city of
royal
significance.
significance.
And then, in the tunnels beneath the city of David, near the Gihon Spring, archaeologists found the water shaft of 2 Samuel, the very channel through which David's forces entered the city.
The city of David.
Layer by layer, the
look at the
city of
layers
David
here.
assembled itself
It's a
from the
glimpse
ground
into the
upward.
past. This site is remarkable.
Not as the modest village critics imagined, but as the significant urban center the Bible always claimed it was. And finally, on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, the city Jesus called home. Capernaum, the city where Jesus taught in the synagogue, healed the sick, and called fishermen to follow. Excavations at Capernaum have uncovered the ancient synagogue built on the foundations of a first-century structure. Beneath the Byzantine church erected centuries later, archaeologists found a first-century house with walls that had been plastered and modified in a way consistent with early Christian veneration. Graffiti scratched into the plaster in Aramaic, Greek, and Syriac references to Jesus, to Peter. The house the Gospels call the house of Simon Peter, confirmed not by faith, but by plaster and graffiti. The cities refused to stay buried because the truth they contained was too large for the earth to hold.
God
And as we stand in the ruins of these confirmed cities, one question rises above the dust.
We wonder.
If the cities are real, if the walls fell exactly as described, if the fire came exactly as recorded, then what does that say about the God the people inside those cities were either serving or defying?
What does it all mean? The evidence points to something
The
more
geography
significant
has
here
been
than we
confirmed.
first imagined.
The theology
There are
is
layers to
waiting,
this story.
and the next chapter
And it
goes
connects
deeper
everything.
still. There is a difference between a story that survives and a story that is confirmed. Survival requires only that someone keeps telling it. Confirmation requires that hostile empires independently agree. The events we are about to examine did not merely survive. They were confirmed by the very civilizations that had every reason to deny them. We begin with the most debated event in the entire Old Testament.
The evidence
The
simply is
Exodus
not
for
there,
2 centuries, the centerpiece of a skeptic's argument
generations of
against
searching.
biblical historicity. No Egyptian records, they insisted, describe the plagues, the Hebrew departure, or the army's collapse.
2 centuries.
If it happened,
The
they
answer has been
argued,
right in
Egypt
front of
would have
us.
recorded it, and Egypt's
It is
silence
silence
was the loudest possible denial.
No, that's a common
But this argument
misconception.
contains a flaw
Absence
so
of evidence
fundamental
is
that
not evidence of
Egyptologists
absence,
find it almost
especially in a field
embarrassing to
like this.
repeat. Egypt did not record its defeats, not the military reversals, not the plagues, not the catastrophic losses. Ancient Egyptian records are monuments to power, not honest administrative histories. The Battle of Kadesh, where Ramses II fought to a stalemate, was recorded in Egypt as total victory.
The Egyptian relief
The Hittite
proclaims
records
total
tell a
victory,
different story. Egyptian
while the
silence about
Hittite
the
text
Exodus is
describes
not
a
evidence of
stalemate and a
absence.
treaty.
You can say. The
It is
conventional
evidence of a
understanding
culture
Egyptian chronology
constitutionally
is largely
incapable of
incomplete
recording
here.
its own
Our
humiliation.
documentation is notably sparse in this region.
But the silence is not total. The Iplorp of Hyrus, an Egyptian document of undeniable content, remains. It describes a catastrophic series of events that transformed Egyptian society. The river turned to blood, crops destroyed, livestock dead, darkness, death moving through households. The parallels to the plagues of Exodus are not superficial, they are structural, following the same sequence. And then there is the physical evidence of a large Semitic population in the eastern Nile Delta. At a site called Avaris, modern Tel El Daba, Manfred Biodoc spent decades in excavation. What he found had not prepared him for what Egyptian nationalist historiography would say.
They won't believe us.
A massive settlement of Semitic people, not Egyptian, but specifically Semitic, occupying the eastern delta in numbers consistent with the biblical description of the Israelite population. The settlement grew rapidly. It prospered, and then, at a specific stratum in the archaeological record,
Look at this.
it ended,
It just
not
stops.
gradually,
No transition,
not
no
through
assimilation.
assimilation.
Sudden
The population
disappearance.
simply
The end of
disappeared from the
Avaris.
archaeological record.
The depth
They were
here
there.
suggests a
Then
very
they were
early
not.
period of
The
occupation.
earth recorded what
And look at
Egypt
these
would not.
foundation lines, perfectly aligned.
But now we move from Egyptian silence to Babylonian confession, because while Egypt hid its losses,
By the
Babylon
authority
kept
of the
records.
empire,
The Babylonian
ours.
captivity, the
My
70-year
power
exile
is
of a Jewish
absolute.
people, was for a long time treated with
The evidence we
suspicion.
have here, collected
The
before
numbers
the
seem
tablets
too
were even
large,
discovered,
the details
clearly
too
casts
precise,
doubt on
the
scale of
theological
biblical
framing
account.
too convenient.
I recognize this seal. It is
Then
a
came
ration
the
ledger.
Babylonian ration tablets
these
discovered
names,
in the ruins
good
of the royal
heavens,
palace at
they're all
Babylon. These administrative records, the mundane bookkeeping of an ancient empire, listed the recipients of food and oil. Among them, recorded in cuneiform with the bureaucratic indifference of an accountant. Yehohanan, king of the land of Yahud, and his 5 sons. Jehoiachin, king of Judah, prisoner of a Babylonian empire, receiving rations from Nebuchadnezzar's royal kitchen. The book of 2 Kings records this captivity in precise detail. The Babylonian administrative records confirm it with the detached accuracy of empire-level bookkeeping.
The king decrees that all captives shall
The
be
greatest
counted and
superpower
recorded.
of its
Yes,
age
Your
kept
Majesty.
meticulous records
Let
of the
scribes
prisoners
begin
it
the
fed.
enumeration.
And in doing so, it accidentally preserved the most detailed external confirmation of Israel's exile ever discovered. History's strongest empire became the unwilling archivist of the people it conquered. But no historical confirmation carries the weight of what comes next. because we turn now to an event so central to Christian faith that its confirmation changes everything.
The theological elaboration here is
The
quite distinct from
crucifixion
what
for
historical
generations.
documentation would likely
Critics
suggest.
argue the
We
gospel
must be
details
skeptical
were
of these
theological
details.
elaboration rather than historical record. Then in
think it's a tomb. No
1968,
way. It could be
construction
ancient.
workers
We
in
need to call
Jerusalem
someone
uncovered an
immediately.
ancient Jewish tomb. Inside was a bone box and ossuary containing the remains of a man named Jehohanan. And through his heel bone was an iron nail still embedded in the calcified remains. Bented the tip word had struck a knot in the olive wood of the cross.
The evidence. It's unequivocal. This nail
For the first
through
time
this
in
heel
history,
bone. This is the
physical
first of its
evidence of a
kind. We're looking at
crucified
history
individual from the
redefined.
1st century was confirmed. The nail, the heel, the wood grain still preserved in the metal's corrosion.
The name carved
The
here,
gospel mechanics
Yehohanan,
were not invented,
marks
they were
the burial
confirmed by
of a
the
real
bones of a
person.
man whose name we
Real
know.
bones, a real nail.
And then the story of substitution rises again, not as theology, but as history.
The hour
On the
approaches.
morning of the crucifixion, a cross
It is
stood
ready.
ready for a man named
May
Barabbas.
the gods judge him fairly.
The beam had been cut, the nails had been counted, the soldiers had been assigned. Then the crowd spoke, and Jesus of Nazareth walked to a cross that bore another man's name. He carried a crossbeam assigned to a condemned criminal
Prepare the
and was
next for
nailed to
decree.
wood prepared for someone else.
I demand a life
This
for
is
a
not
life. He
metaphor,
must
this
pay.
is the
Please
most
spare me. This is
precisely
not my fault,
documented
not him.
substitution
Take me
in human
instead.
history.
No, this one will do. Away with him.
4 separate
Recorded
accounts,
by 4
illuminated
independent
by the
gospel
same
accounts,
truth,
corroborated by
documenting a
Roman
history that
historical
echoes through
sources,
time.
and confirmed by the archaeological reality of 1st century crucifixion practice. One man's guilt, one man's death, a transaction so complete, so literal, so historically grounded, that it becomes
Traces of a
impossible
large
to
community
dismiss
here
as
are
symbol alone. The
unmistakable.
Exodus
But
left
what
fingerprints in
happened? The
Egyptian
records are
soil.
silent.
The captivity left records in Babylonian tablets. The crucifixion left a nail in a man's heel. The events happened, and if they happened, then the God who moved through them is not a theological construct. He is a
Delta site
historical
of
actor in
Avaris,
history,
the ruins
it
of
turns
Babylon,
out, has
and the
been
city of
keeping better
Jerusalem.
records than anyone assumed.
Relocation.
The time has come.
The cross was not prepared
crowd
for
awaits
Jesus,
the
it was
verdict.
prepared for someone else.
Let justice be served.
And yet he walked toward it without hesitation. If that substitution stirs something in you, write it in the comments below, not as debate, not as doctrine, just as the honest response of a human being confronting a moment in history. Your words may
And in
be
the
the reason
deepest
someone else
shadows,
stays long
words
enough
will
to hear
gather.
the rest.
The oil lamps will ignite.
There is a question that sits beneath every other question in this entire conversation. Even if the cities are real, even if the people existed, even if the events happened,
But if this
how do we
marginal
know the text
notation
that
is
describes them has
contemporaneous,
not
as
been
they
altered?
claim, what does that say about the rest of the text?
It is the most sophisticated objection, and the evidence answers it most devastatingly. We return to the cave above the Dead Sea. It is 1947, and the scrolls have just been found. And the world is about to discover something that no one had fully anticipated. Before the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, the oldest known manuscript of the Hebrew Bible was the Masoretic text,
At 920 AD,
specifically
we see
the
a 1,000-year
Aleppo
gap.
Codex,
This
dated to
millennium of
approximately
copying provides
920
fertile
AD,
ground
and
for
critics had a
textual
ready
corruption.
argument. 1,000
I
years
must
of
ensure
copying,
this is
they
perfect.
said, is 1,000 years of potential corruption.
There is a slight discrepancy.
1,000 years of human hands touching the text, human eyes misreading it, human minds reshaping it,
For centuries, this
The
textual
argument
vulnerability
was
remained
reasonable.
unchallenged.
It was
Before
logical.
1947,
It was on
nearly
its
impossible
surface
to refute.
difficult to
We believed
refute.
we had every angle covered.
Then the shepherd threw his stone and everything changed. Among the scrolls discovered was a complete book of Isaiah. The Great Isaiah Scroll, dated by paleographic analysis and carbon dating to approximately 125 BC, 1,000 years older than the Masoretic text, 1,000 years closer to the original composition.
The parallelism
Scholars
is
held their
undeniable.
breath as they
The
began the
variations
comparison,
confirm it.
and what they found silenced the room.
This changes everything.
The two texts, separated by a millennium of copying across radically different historical periods, were virtually identical.
No, it can't be.
Not
Look at this.
approximately identical,
But
not
the text,
similar in
it's a
theme and
perfect match.
content,
Right.
virtually
Incredible.
word for word. The variations that existed were minor spelling differences, occasional word choices. None of them altering a single doctrine, a single historical claim, a single prophetic statement.
It's a dissing.
1,000 years of transmission, negligible drift. No other ancient document in human history can make this claim. Homer's Iliad, transmitted across a similar timeframe, shows significant textual variation.
Notice
The
Greek
works of
here
Plato,
differs from the
copied by
established
scribes who
Yes,
had
that
every reason to
marginalia is
preserve them
definitely
carefully,
century.
contained
And the ink
meaningful
color suggests
discrepancies. But the Hebrew Bible arrived at the 20th century essentially unchanged from its 2nd century BC form.
1, 2,
The scribes
3,
who copied it were the
4,
Masoretes, who
5,
counted every letter of every
6.
word,
perfect.
to ensure that not a single character was added or removed.
No. It is
If
not
a scroll
sufficient.
contained a single
I must
error,
begin anew.
it was not corrected.
May the divine grant me the strength.
It was destroyed and recopied from scratch. This was not religious enthusiasm alone.
Line 1, word 3.
This
check the
was
variance.
systematic,
Confirmed.
methodological,
Proceed.
almost scientific textual preservation practiced across centuries with a rigor that astonishes. And the Dead Sea Scrolls confirmed that it worked, but the manuscript tradition is only one dimension. Because inside the preserved text are prophecy-specific, datable, historically verifiable prophecies recorded centuries before the events they described. In Isaiah 44 and 45, written in the 8th century BC, the text names a Persian king, Cyrus. Cyrus the Great did not exist when Isaiah wrote those words.
Isaiah spoke of an
The
empire
Persian
that
Empire
yet
did not
exist,
exist when
naming
Isaiah
Cyrus,
wrote those
naming
words.
Cyrus before his birth.
Jerusalem had not yet fallen when Isaiah wrote those words, and yet the text names him specifically. 150
The Lord
years
has
before
chosen
Cyrus was
Cyrus to
born,
perform his
before his
will.
empire rose, Isaiah recorded his name.
The critical evidence
Critics
of chapter
have
40
attempted to
strongly
resolve
indicates
this by
composite
proposing a
authorship,
second author
resolving
writing
the
after the
historical
fact.
enigma of the Cyrus prophecy. The unified
A
scroll
deutero
proves
Isaiah
it.
composing the later
40
chapters
through
during or after
66
the
were
exile.
undeniably written centuries later.
But the Dead Sea Scrolls contain the complete book of Isaiah as a single unified scroll.
The proposed
With
division
no
point
textual
here at chapter
break,
40
no
shows
scribal
no
indication
physical
of
change in the
division,
parchment,
no
nor in
manuscript
the hand
evidence
the
of
scribe.
composite authorship. The text that names Cyrus is the same continuous scroll as the text that describes the suffering servant. One
Cyrus,
author,
the name
one
written in the
scroll,
Isaiah scroll,
one prophecy,
precise,
fulfilled by
prophetic,
one
a
king who had not
to
yet
be,
drawn his
named
first breath. And Isaiah is not alone. Micah 5 verse 2, written in the 8th century BC, names Bethlehem.
Chapter 9.
Daniel 9, written in the
mathematical
6th century
timeline.
BC, contains a
Precision,
mathematical
it's
prophecy.
astonishing.
The 70 weeks of
The
Daniel
70
mapped
weeks, a
chronologically.
timeline scholars
Scholars'
across
annotations
centuries
from
have
different
mapped to the
centuries,
period of
all
Jesus'
converging on the
ministry
same
and
period.
crucifixion. Zechariah 11, written in the 6th century BC, specifies 30 pieces of silver as the price of betrayal, and describes the money being thrown into the temple and used to purchase a potter's field. Matthew 27 records this sequence of events with the precision of a historian confirming a prophecy.
The data convergence
They
is
are matters of
undeniable.
mathematics.
Statistically,
Peter
this is
Stone
not
are
merely a
calculated the
coincidence. We're looking at
probability
a
of 8
precise and
messianic
mathematically
prophecies
significant
fulfilled by chance. The number he arrived at was 1 in 10 to the 17th power. 1 followed by 17 zeros to illustrate. Imagine covering all of Texas 2 feet deep in silver dollars. One of them marked with an X. The probability of a blindfolded person pulling out that marked coin first is the same probability that 8 prophecies converged on one person by chance. And the number of messianic prophecies in the Old Testament is not 8. It is over 300. The text was preserved, the prophecies recorded, the fulfillments historical, and the mathematics of coincidence collapses long before it reaches an explanation.
The evidence is
What
clear.
remains when the manuscript evidence is examined, when the prophecies are counted, when transmission is traced? It was not written to be believed, it was written to be remembered. And the earth through scrolls in desert caves has spent a century confirming what the text claimed. It was not written to be believed, it was written to be remembered. And the earth through scrolls in desert caves has spent a century confirming what the text claimed. There is a moment in every serious investigation when the evidence stops being a collection of separate data points and begins to behave like a single argument. When the pieces do not merely coexist, they converge.
Different paths to
When the
same
lines
truth.
drawn from archaeology and physics and linguistics and history all point toward the same
They
center.
all meet here.
We have spent 5 chapters walking through separate corridors of evidence. The engineering of an ark that should not float and floats perfectly. The names of rulers and governors carved into stone by their own hands. The cities that critics buried in theory and the earth resurrected in fact.
For generations they were dismissed as theory.
The events that hostile empires accidentally confirmed in their own administrative records. The text that crossed 1,000 years of transmission and arrived virtually unchanged.
Separated 1,000 years.
Each discoverer standing alone is remarkable. Together they constitute something that demands a different category of response.
Each fragment
This is
holds
the
a story.
chapter where we step back
Step
from the
back,
individual
and the
stones
full
and look at the mosaic
reveals
they
the
form.
past's grandeur.
And what the mosaic reveals is not what the skeptics expected.
It changes everything.
The convergence is
It is not a
undeniable.
collection of
Every
lucky
detail,
guesses, not a
every
series
angle
of
points to a
coincidences
pattern
that
far
favor
too
the biblical
consistent from mere
account.
coincidence.
It is a pattern consistent, directional, and accelerating, and every decade the tools of investigation become more precise. Carbon dating grows more accurate, satellite imaging reveals buried structures invisible to the naked eye. DNA analysis traces population movements across millennial. Linguistic algorithms identify manuscript traditions with impossible precision. And with every increase in precision, the same thing happens. The biblical account becomes more confirmed,
Popular media
not less.
claims science
This is the
contradicts
detail
Scripture,
that the popular
but the
narrative
actual
never
evidence
fully
points in
acknowledges.
the opposite direction. The evidence is irrefutable. Modern scientific
The
rigor has
assumption
finally
was that as
resolved this question
investigation
definitively,
became more
allowing us
rigorous,
to
the
dismiss
Bible
past
would become less
superstitions.
credible.
The smoke
That
of
the myths
was
would dissolve
expected to
under
vanish
scrutiny
under
and
the
the
light of
legends
reason.
separate from the history.
No, this can't be right.
The opposite has happened. The more
The data is
precisely we
conclusive.
look, the more
It contradicts
precisely the
everything.
text is
The
confirmed.
data confirms remarkable stability.
The ark's
These
dimensions
carvings
hold
date
under
precisely to the
hydrodynamic
Second Temple
analysis.
period.
The pool of
Precision
Siloam
across
emerges
disciplines.
exactly where John
The
places
evidence
it.
is undeniable.
The walls of Jericho
they've
fall in the
fallen
direction
outward,
the book
but
of
rather
Joshua
precisely as the
describes.
text describes.
Babylonian tablets preserve Israel's captive king, and the prophecy of Cyrus stands in a scroll dated before his birth. Each confirmation is not a mathematical proof. Faith was never designed to be mathematically coerced. But each confirmation is something equally significant. It is the removal of an objection. One by one, the intellectual obstacles that stood between the skeptic and honest consideration of Scripture have been cleared, not by theologians arguing from pulpits, but by archaeologists arguing from evidence.
The hydrodynamics correlate exactly.
By physicists arguing from equations and linguists arguing from manuscript comparisons.
Confirm the location. No.
By astrophysicists arguing from the thermal analysis of an ancient destruction later in the Jordan Valley.
The Genesis event.
The witnesses to Scripture's reliability are no longer exclusively religious, they are increasingly secular, reluctant, and precise. And this convergence points toward a conclusion that is simple to state and profound to sit with.
Investigate every
The
word.
Bible is the most investigated document in human history, subjected to more hostile analysis than any other text.
After 2 centuries,
And it has not been falsified, not on the historical claims that can be checked, not on the geographical claims that can be excavated, not on the manuscript claims that can be compared, not on the prophetic claims that can be mapped against recorded history. And a document that survives this level of investigation with its credibility intact is not merely a religious artifact. It is a historical phenomenon requiring explanation. But here in this final chapter, we move from intellectual to personal. Because evidence was never the point, evidence is the road. It is not the destination. The God who encoded naval engineering in Genesis and named a Persian king a century before his birth. He did not do so to win a debate, he did so because he was trying to reach someone. He was trying to reach the person who needed to know that the story was real, before they could bring themselves to believe that the love was real. The person who grew up in a household where faith was expected but never explained. The person who walked away from the church not because they stopped wanting God to be real, but because they needed a reason to believe that wanting was not the same as wishful thinking. The person lying awake at 3 in the morning with a question they have never said out loud. Not to a pastor, not to a spouse, not to anyone. Because the question felt too dangerous, too destabilizing, too much like the first step toward losing everything. The evidence was always for that person, not to coerce faith, but to remove the barrier preventing it. Because once the intellectual obstacle is cleared, what remains is not an argument.
Welcome.
What remains is an invitation to consider that the God who shaped nations also knows your life. That the same precision that encoded Cyrus's name in a prophecy written before his birth also knows your name.
Preserved through fire.
That the God who preserved a text across 15 centuries has not lost track of you. This is the convergence that matters most, not the convergence of archaeology and Scripture.
After all this time,
The convergence of history and the present moment of ancient evidence and your particular life. Your particular questions, your particular doubts, your particular hunger for something that does not shift when the world does. The Dead Sea Scrolls were sealed in a cave for 2,000 years. They were not lost, they were waiting for the moment when the world needed the most. Waiting for the generation that would demand evidence before extending trust. Waiting for you, the scrolls were not hidden to be found. They were hidden for you. The walls of Jericho fell outward as if the force that toppled them was not outside but moving within. That is how truth moves not through the front door of argument, battering its way into a resistant mind. Through the interior quiet, precise, and arriving exactly when the resistance finally exhausts itself. If you have walked through all 6 chapters and something has shifted, if the distance between your doubt and your faith has narrowed even slightly,
I recognize
do
now
not
that
dismiss
I am
that narrowing is sentiment. It is evidence of a different
Something
kind.
has settled here, definitively.
The kind that has been moving through human hearts for 2,000 years and has not yet been falsified. The earth remembers the God who made it.
The earth
And tonight,
spoke
through dust and stone and scroll and nail, it has been trying to remind you.
And finally through the nail.
Not to
If
argue,
something
not
in
to
this
lecture,
journey landed
but to
differently
say,
than you expected,
"I've seen
share
it
it below.
6 chapters of evidence,
Not as
visible
testimony,
behind.
not as debate,
The simple,
just as the honest reflection of
someone
someone who walked through the evidence and found that the road did not end where the skeptics said it would. This community is not built on certainty, it is built on the courage to keep asking. And your voice here may be the thing that gives someone else the courage to begin. We began with a shepherd and a thrown stone, and we end with the same truth that stone uncovered. The Bible did not survive because humanity chose to protect it. It survived because what is written inside is older than every empire that tried to erase it.
The mathematics of Genesis.
6 chapters, 6 categories
Consider
of
the
evidence.
first piece of
An
evidence.
ark that floats by the mathematics of Genesis. A tunnel carved through a mountain with a precision that still humbles modern engineers.
Keep clearing. Watch the
A
edges of the
pool
steps.
buried beneath
We're almost to the
Jerusalem,
next level
exactly
here,
where
huh?
a gospel said it
Amazing
would
to see
be.
this. Careful with the dust.
A Roman
Pilate
governor's
Stone,
name
unearthed
carved
in
into a
Caesarea
building block, a
Maritima,
Babylonian
confirms
grocery
Pontius
list
Pilate
bearing Israel's captive
and the
king.
The
A
evidence
cosmic
here,
event
the
that
blackened
scorched
earth
an
and
ancient
glass,
city
it's
into glass and
undeniable.
rendered the earth
The scale of the
uninhabitable for
destruction
centuries.
is
A unified scroll preserving a prophecy written before the birth of the king it named. Virtually unchanged across 1,000 years of transmission and denial. Still bent, still embedded, still bearing witness to an execution that changed the axis of history. None of this asks you to stop thinking, all of this asks you to keep going. Because the investigation does not end here, it ends wherever you take it next. Into your own questions, your own doubts, your own quiet hunger for something that holds. The God of Scripture does not hide from honest inquiry. He leaves evidence in caves, ruins, tablets, and nails. He leaves it for the skeptic, the seeker, and the person sitting in the back of the room.
And that,
Listening,
friends,
wanting to believe,
is the
waiting
evidence
for
you've been
one
waiting
more
for.
reason to stay.
The time has come
If
to
this
listen.
journey brought you closer,
We
even
hear
one
you.
step, let this community know.
One step is all we need.
Look closer, right there on the
Like
hill.
this video, shared
But
with
what is it?
someone
What
whose
is it?
questions
It's
deserve
the origin,
better
the one
answers
you
than
asked about.
silence.
This is where it started.
The sun is setting.
Subscribe
But the
so
earth
the
is
next
still
time the
speaking.
earth speaks, you
See
are in
what
the
we
room
found
to hear
here.
it. And leave your reflection below, not because we need your agreement,
The earth continues
because
to yield
someone
its
out there
secrets.
needs your honesty. The dust is
Look at
still
these
rising.
carvings, centuries old.
The scrolls.
The story
we must
is
uncover
not
their
finished,
secrets.
and neither are you.
awaits us within.
Forward. The answers are near.